Hello, this is an assessment of a Bechstein Model 10 1913. The key tops are in good condition. They are quite dirty and in fact would probably benefit from buffing. These are original ivories though. Here's an example of a set of buff keys that have been buffed, and so they shine so the dirt doesn't get attracted to them. To compare this to the Model 10, you can see that the dirt's been attracted, and certainly buffing them will stop that from happening. There's a buffing wheel on which the keys are buffed. Looking inside at the hammers, we can see there's a great deal of wear on the hammers. It's also been used quite a lot. You can see the indentation lines here quite clearly, and that's the mid-treble where it's used the most. But these indentation lines run right up to the top, so there must be somebody using it who knew how to play the piano really well at some stage. At the top end, there's just about enough hammer left before it's just hitting onto the wood. But the hammers sound quite sweet actually. The main problem is that with it being so indented round this area, it's very weak if you play softly, and really needs reshaping at the very least so that you get the tone back on it. Replacing the hammers is another possibility, or recovering them. These are options. Obviously recovering is slightly less than replacing. Replacing is quite a lot of work because you've got to line them all up to the strings afterwards, as well as the cost of buying the hammers and getting them really lined up properly. As you can see, the action's really dirty and needs cleaning, although that doesn't obviously affect the sound of the piano, but something we would do if we're restoring it. This is what we call a tied action, where you'd have to pull these out if you're going to work on them. In fact, the Bechstein Model 10 tied action works extremely well, so it's not a problem, except that you have to adjust both of these screws when you want to do any adjustment. Having said that, they tend not to need so much adjustment as an ordinary action. This piano here's got an ordinary action with capstans, and you just adjust these by turning them here, so there's not such a complicated job. The dampers are lifting off pretty evenly to the sustain pedal, although it's quite a noisy sustain pedal, so that needs sorting out. They're lifting off well to the keys as well in the middle area. That's about halfway, the hammer travels about halfway to the string before the damper lifts off. That's just about right. But in the bass end, they're lifting off too early, which makes the bass really heavy, because the bass damper springs are heavier anyway, so that one's almost lifting off immediately. They are damping properly, but lifting off far too early really. Although these return tapes here are quite dirty, they're actually in good condition, but if we did have to take them off to work on anything, then they would break probably, and we'd have to change them. We usually change the whole set, obviously, to make it look right. The strings look really rusty and dirty, but they're all there. So if we pitch raised, and it's more or less on pitch, it's about 1 beat below, there wouldn't be any problem with that, I wouldn't think. If one of the treble strings happened to break in the pitch raise, then we would. In fact, there are a couple at the top here, so I'll take back a bit of that. If we do get a broken string, we can normally use the same string again, but at the top there, that hasn't happened. So there may be possibly one, my guess would be one, maybe there's another string broken there, so there's more than met the eye there when we're looking through, so might get the odd treble string broken. I think if we lubricate at the friction points, which is going to minimise any breakages, I would very much doubt whether we get any other breakages. We'll have to replace the strings that are missing at the top. Looking under the keys, can't find any evidence of moth or any other problems. In fact, the felts here are really good. They've obviously been replaced at some stage, and they're in very good condition. The key dip is about right. This is 11mm key dip, 10.5 to 11. That's exactly right, and it feels good as well. The sharps are going down the right amount too. And down the bottom here of the piano, apart from being dirty, the bridges are in good condition, and the soundboard's in good condition too. Going back to the strings, the copper wound strings here are a bit poor sounding. It certainly would be great to replace those, and as some treble strings are broken, it is something to consider restringing the whole piano, but I think that obviously the value of the piano is taken into consideration. Having said that, surprisingly, the bass strings on these are longer than, say, a Style 4 Bluthner, which is a very popular and valuable piano. So although this is a straight strum piano, it's actually quite tall. And Bechstein deliberately made this style of piano to be taller and thinner and have straight stringing, because straight string is some advantages. You get better damping round here at the break point because they're not crossing over each other. On a piano like this, where they do cross over, it compromises the damping here, as you can see. One damper one side, another the other side, and one damper has to be shorter. Finally, let's have a look at the back of the piano. There's no woodworm, by the way, no moth that we discovered in the piano at all, which is very encouraging. Now the casework is certainly wonderful rosewood. If we repolish this, it could look quite stunning. Here's an example of a completely refinished Gores & Kalman piano. This one was in a dreadful state, and there you can see the rosewood there looking very pretty. Around the side here you can see the grain. And it's 30 coats roughly of French polish, followed by antique waxing. Here's another example of French polish. This was a darker rosewood actually, and it's been refinished. The Groch and Steinberg, they're amazingly good pianos, and you see the front panel's beautiful there too. So this was redone deliberately, a lighter colour than it was originally. And again, it's about 30 coats of French polish, followed off by antique waxing. There's a rosewood Bechstein Model 7, taller piano. Okay, so that's a Bechstein Model 10, 1913. Good piano. The hammers particularly would need work. Other aspects, you could restring the whole piano, you could redo the whole action. It's worth it. A beautiful sounding piano is one of my favourite models of Bechstein. Let's have a listen to it. Now up here, that's where it's really weak because the hammers need redoing. And down here, new bass strings would certainly improve it. The overall tone's very sweet, as a Bechstein Model 10 should be. So thank you very much for listening.